Good morning, everyone. My name is Todd Cochran, and welcome to the Saturday Morning Tech Show. I have Anna McCaskey up on top and Rob Greenlee down on bottom. Of course, Rob's with Zoom.net. Of course, Andy is with SDRnews.com. Good morning, gentlemen. It's been a while since we've done one of these, hasn't it?
It has been.
Good
The
morning.
holidays
We've
are
been
over.
traveling.
I think we have to talk all at the same time. So, yeah, Andy, you and I have been traveling, and Rob, you just been hanging out in Seattle, yeah?
Exactly. Not didn't go anywhere for the holidays. Just kind of stayed around town and just worked.
Well, I think we were working too, and I really that was actually one of the topics I wanted to talk about here this morning as well. But I just I started looking at my calendar, and I went back and I told my show audience on Thursday. I said I have just been task saturated for about the last it's 60 days. And actually, I flipped back further and it was more like 90 days. And I mean, task saturated. I mean, like my schedule has been full. There's not have has been very few empty days in that schedule, and that includes weekends. And of course, I pencil in specific time I try to spend with the family, but it was very obvious that I had not penciled in enough time. I was starting to get those sideways glances from the missus. So I got to take a little bit of time today and do some family time. But Andy, how's your task saturation mode doing?
Well, as Car Karsten said to me, what were you thinking in trying to launch this new network here for the RV world of RVs, and trying to do that on the Saturday after which I got back from CES. So I way bit off more than I could chew.
Well, waving it's just like I got home on Tuesday and I thought, oh, I can relax. And I'm like, no, I have this hard drive here sitting with 1.6 terabytes of content in it. I had a second hard drive that had 160 gigs of floor interviews on it. And I said, there's no rest for the weary. And, and I basically, from Tuesday afternoon until Monday, my Mac did not stop compressing video for that entire time. I mean, it ran 24/7. The Mac Pro down here with Duke 16 cores running full out for essentially that 5 6 day period. The FTP account ran continuously for 7 days, uploading stuff into UStream, and then I went to Texas for a week. So I got up about a gig and a half worth of stuff while I was in Texas, pushing to Ustream, and then I got home and I had about 2.5 days of live content to finish editing, and I got that all done. And I started the compressor, and it finished yesterday. So it's 2 weeks, 2 weeks just to edit and compress the content from the show when some of these files are 500, we put everything up at 720p and all these 400, 300 megs, 500 megs. But Rob, what do you think our total interview count was for the show?
I'd say you probably had two or three, probably 250 interviews.
Andy and I were talking about it just a little bit before we started. We think we're going to be about 260. Now,
Wow.
the thing is pretty amazing about that. Of course, what we're talking about for those of you that are saying what show was, of course, CES 2011. Andy, how many vendors were in Vegas this year?
2,700, I think, was the official count.
So if we make it to 270, we actually covered 10% of the show. We covered 10% of the vendors, which I think in anybody's book, that's pretty damn good.
No, that's a lot of videos. You guys were cranking it down there.
The problem that we run into, just like every year, is the Engadgets and the Gizmodos of the world have 30 people on, basically on staff, and they're able to crank stuff out just as fast as they produce it right there at the show. And we are a team of, well, essentially 3 to 4 full timers, and then a whole bunch of part timers, and the sports staff is not responsible for kicking any of the content out. So I've got 120 videos still to put up on Geek News Central, and you know you do 120 blog posts. Actually, my bloggers are putting them together. So we tried to get everything, as much as stuff up on TPN.TV. I think we've got about 100 videos left to put up on TPN.TV.
Yeah, I have to say, just kind of looking overall at the coverage, at least in the podcast area, you're exactly right. A lot of the other, the CNETs and the Revision 3s got their content up really, really quick. But also, if you look at all three of those guys and their current feeds right now, they're still pushing content from CES, actually through their feeds. I would say that one thing that probably would have helped you guys a little bit is to get more, or actually get some video up in your feeds right as the show was breaking.
Yeah.
Just some feedback that I would actually give you, because I think a lot of the interest skewed a little earlier this year than I think in the past.
And and being live too, we were live for 40 hours.
Yeah,
So that,
exactly.
that kind of, we felt kind of offset
Yeah.
the, not having stuff up. But it's true, I was getting emails from people, when's the torrent of content going to start getting shoved down and I'm like, we couldn't have done any more than we did. And another thing too is that, it would almost need another TriCaster sitting there, because um, the TriCaster's running live. I can't cut it to go edit. It's sitting there cranking. But Andy, what?
I think it was a real education for me, because once I got back and here's a terabyte drive with just my portion of the of the interviews, and just moving really large files around, 10 gig files, moving 10 gig files around with USB 2 when you're more used to FireWire 800. Even on FireWire, it still takes a while when you get these large files, moving them back and forth. It's just a different environment than I'd certainly been in before.
And another thing we did this year for the first year was that. Let me see if I can switch this. I have both of us on the same. That helps if I switch that. Another thing I did this year, Rob, was, well, Annie knows, is I made all the hosts edit their own videos. And so they could, how should I say it, feel some of my pain from years past. So, Andy, was that a little bit of an eye opener to figure out, holy crap, how much work really was involved before?
Oh, I knew how much work it was, but I tell you, even if you're throwing a lot of hardware at it, which I'm able to do, also had kind of the day job. I've got the Mac Pro, but then we're using that for other things. Here with RVNN, so I kind of have to take the CES material, and I'm on the MacBook on the older machines, trying to ping pong between the two of them. Also, I'm learning more about Final Cut than I ever wanted to know.
But needless to say, I think overall, when we get done with the number count, and we may not be the fastest out of the chute, we are seeing, and I haven't shared publicly really what these numbers are, and I told Andy, and I'm not ready to announce yet, but the Boxy and the Roku box are flat out hitting it out of the ballpark. We're 42% consumption on those devices, and I think the 720p and the promotion and having the dedicated channel, um, and then when we added, basically, when we had to add some subcategories to it last week, the numbers just went stratosphere, and it's beyond impressive. We're gonna hit numbers unlike numbers we've ever hit in years past, and we're only halfway through the content, and this is less than a month out, and we're basically 20 days since the close of the show, and we know historically that we get huge numbers through about 90 days, and then it'll trickle off slowly throughout the year. Plus, the SEO will get on the websites.
Yeah.
I'm expecting 25, 30 million views out of the 250 interviews or 260 interviews.
Wow, that's great. So did you see a large spike in the live viewers this year, or is it about the same, or are you
Well,
guys?
the live actually was not as good as we thought it would be. The live, I think what did we run? The max, we had about 250 on at one time, maybe live, maybe 300. Last year when
Right. I think that was the max, and on several shifts, we were 150, 125, that sort of thing. But I think people came in and out, and
right.
if we had been able to do a better job with the chat room coverage, I think, and twittering what was going on, I think those numbers would have been higher.
And plus the show hours were mostly Thursday and Friday were during work hours. Now, what
Yeah.
also we thought our numbers would spike on Saturday and Sunday, and the numbers actually went down. So more people watched on Thursday and
From
Friday.
work.
Yeah, we thought people would be home and would tune in. So I think next year we're gonna have a little different strategy on. Well, what we were doing is we had guest and we had floor content that we were intermixing, and I think that was a good mix. But I'd really like to have live streams on the floor as well next year. So, I guess we'll see. We'll see how it turns out, and we'll see if CEA was happy and if we're basically invited back to do the live broadcast thing. I looked at the UStream numbers. Matter of fact, can I go over there now? It was pretty big. Um, Something like 420,000 viewer hours for the entire. Well, we streamed for 5 days straight. So a lot of people came in and hung out for 10, 15 minutes and left.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was 42,000. It was pretty high. I was actually surprised that and actually, we didn't get a couple of days of stats. They quit taking stats on us for 2 days, which irritates me a little bit because I'm missing 2 days of stats from the show. But that was definitely a surprise. And we had the simulcast on 17 websites, I believe. And even, there's times when the viewer count number doesn't keep up. And somehow I think we may have had more viewers than what we thought we did, um, based on some of those encodes that were over on some of those other websites.
So are you streaming through Roku?
And no, we are just putting the content up in a dedicated channel or dedicated
Okay.
category on the Tech Podcast channel on the Roku.
Okay. So none of the live stuff
No,
was available through Roku then.
no, we
Okay.
didn't do any live on the Roku. That was a potential to be done later this year, maybe, but not right now. One thing that I want to show you guys, and we can kind of switch back to some other topics here, is I want to show you the new. Of course, Andy, you know how I'm switching the show here. Let me go and show you guys. This is the switcher that I'm using right now. You can see it sitting here. It's a 3-row switcher with the LC11, and this is basically the unit that's designed to go with Andy's machine. But let me show you, Andy. I don't know if you've seen this or not. Wait till you see this. This is what's coming in a couple of weeks. Can you
Oh,
see?
wow.
That's the new switcher from NewTek, and
Uh,
It's 28 inches wide by 11
Well,
inches. And, I'm thinking here in the studio, I'm going to have about this much area that's going to have this stupid switcher. And I told my wife I have to find a little bigger desk because I need about another 2 or 3 inches here. I'm going to have to figure out how to move the monitor back. But,
yeah, you
Well,
know that I'm comparing that with the Grass Valley 100 and 200, which were the switchers when I was with them years ago, and that looks like about a 150. It looks like right in the middle there, but boy, that looks familiar.
but it has, I'll be able to do everything. Part of my problem is I haven't been able to execute everything on this box because this LC11 doesn't allow me to do all the switching I need to switch, but I'll be able to do effects, program everything into. Actually, there's keys on this thing you can program to do certain things. So I'm excited to do that. Maybe here when it gets here, we'll do a few green screens where we're in a virtual session, which will be kind of fun. Well, let me go ahead, and we're supposed to be talking a little bit about tech. Let's talk just a little bit about Egypt and them killing the internet. What's your guys' thoughts on that whole situation?
yeah, I'll go
Well, I thought
first.
it was interesting.
All right, Rob, go ahead.
I thought it was really interesting. From what I hear, it's not so much that the whole the internet and the Twitter and the Facebook stuff is really what's behind this. But what's concerning to me was just the whole ability of the government to turn off the internet. And I don't know. I saw on some discussion that Joe Lieberman, I guess, has a bill to do do the same thing here in the U.S. So if we ever had an uprising or a crisis or whatever, the government could shut down the World Wide Web and the internet, and that's a little concerning to me from a bigger perspective that the government is so worried about the internet that they can just pull the plug on it. Um, you know, so I don't know. That's kind of my takeaway from a tech perspective. Um, but it's pretty frightening what's going on over there, really, if you think about the big picture and how that might spread, to more countries, and but it also might be a good thing in the long run too. I'm not quite sure how to assess it quite yet.
Hey, Rob, about Lieberman's bill. They've tried to push this through before, and I believe the administration supports it. Now, here's the thing about that, and this is all I'm really going to say because it could be construed the wrong ways. This is one of the reasons why here in the United States we have the right to bear arms. Go ahead.
Yeah.
turn the internet off. Yeah, let's try that with an armed populace. Andy, what do you think about the Egypt shutdown?
Yeah, that's. I think you've got a very good point there, Todd. The other thing is, I believe I heard that there were basically four wireless carriers slash ISPs that were involved in Egypt, highly concentrated. So four phone calls and things were taken care of. I would hope that we have a little more diversity as far as communications in this regard. But the other thing that I thought was particularly interesting in that situation was the impact on the Egyptian economy. That in order to participate in a worldwide economy and marketplace, those companies have to have those communications, dependent upon them. And you think about that in a population of 80 million, the population of 300 some million, the economic impact of trying to shut things off would be just absolutely catastrophic, in addition to the factors that you were citing.
Well, I think the first thing I thought about, and of course, this news was breaking about the time I was going to bed. The night that it happened. Of course, I'm basically 5 hours behind you or behind you, Andy. Was that man, if this, if there's something like this happened in the United States, where's my modems at? Does my computer still have modems in them or not? Because I would have been digging for a modem and going through my previous list and finding me a dial-up number to get into somewhere because they're gonna have to go to pretty extremes to if they want to, if they're gonna shut us down, they're gonna have to shut the phone lines, the landlines down as well because. And that's what they've done in Egypt is they've actually those who are tech savvy enough were dialing out, and some French ISP basically put out to the Egyptians, here is the dial-in number, here is the login and password, use it as you need it, and so that's how some stuff was getting out of Egypt. But you think about how much effect it could have if the kill switch was put in and the U.S. government had that right, which I would not be surprised if they don't have that right already somehow through some presidential decree or state of emergency or whatever it may be, where they would call
Mm-hmm.
Comcast, Time Warner, Cablevision, they'd call AT&T. They could shut this thing down in a hurry. I don't think that they would. It wouldn't be as near or big as a blackout, but they could shut her down if they wanted to. Just unplug it,
Mm-hmm.
unplug the
Well,
routers.
I think you could certainly shut it down, at least temporarily,
Right,
and
right.
then the general geekly workarounds would begin, and guys like Todd would dig down in the box and find our modems, and parts of it would then begin to to be to work to repair the damage, uh, to work around it.
But I still think that if it ever got to that point here in the United States, people would be loading up their weapons. I can't imagine. I just for the life of me, it would have to be pretty damn bad. We would have to be at war with the Chinese and underneath a massive cyber attack. I think that would be the only thing that would that's the only thing feasible I could think where I think we'd still have internet with the United States, but we would probably have the rest of the world would be blocked off. I could foresee that happening, but it would have to be pretty bad. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
And I think the other thing,
go
what
ahead.
appears to be happening in Egypt, was that the social networking, that communication was like the initial spark, but then events kind of overtake past that point,
Yeah.
and whether or not it's cut off now is almost irrelevant.
And it's true, and and one other thing too is that you're not going to stop the video cameras from capturing stuff. You're not going to stop people from taking still pictures. All this stuff is still going to be recorded, and when they have to sheepishly come back and connect online, that flood of that stuff is going to come on the net, and it may infuriate people more after because people are saying, "Oh, we're not connected. None of this stuff is up." So then people will be dire and they're going to get more upset. So it could work. It could work against them. I don't know. Time will tell.
Yeah, and I think this may be really the beginnings of kind of a new phase for the web and the internet as well, because if you think about it from a bigger perspective, it was always the thought. I mean, even going back to the early days of the web and the internet, that really the web is really a tool for the people to have a greater voice in their governments and their democracies. And it feels like we're kind of coming into a phase now, with the WikiLeaks stuff and now with this kind of stuff, that the web and the internet can be used as a catalyst for the people to have more power over their governments.
Well, I
And I
def
think that the governments are are really really scared of that right now. And just the sheer fact that they're talking about having a kill switch for the internet tells me that we're reaching a tipping point, in the growth of the internet and the power of the internet, and these social networking platforms are really starting to threaten the stranglehold that governments have over people around the world, and I think we're going to see more of this.
now I don't know.
You guys
Go ahead.
may remember, in 2004, probably one of our very initial conversations. This is one of kind of my personal motivation of why I got into podcasting. Aside from the geekly, oh, this would be fun to try. I was traveling on business travel, and I would hear a particular song that I hadn't heard for 30 years. I'm listening to the oldies station. And then, a couple days later, I'd be in a different city and I'd hear that same song, which I hadn't heard for 30 years, except for 2 days before. And then I just began to recognize that broadcasting, that there were like three companies that owned about 95% of the broadcast AM or the radio broadcast capacity in the country. And I just felt that was just fundamentally wrong. And that was the freedom to have a big IP space and to broadcast stuff yourself was kind of a motivator that I had. I don't know if you guys remember that conversation.
Well, I think I remember just the sheer empowerment. That for me has been. If you look, Annie, can you imagine having approached CEA 6 years ago and said to them, "Hey, I'm Andy, and I'm Todd. I'm Todd. This is Andy. We want to do live broadcasts from your show floor." Can you imagine even having raised that conversation?
Well, Todd, yeah, yeah, I went to CES and Comdex back in the really early days of my show. And back in those days, the only way I could get a press pass was if I brought in a article, a physical printed article from like a blog or a newspaper article uh, that proves that that I actually had a press outlet, as far as that I wrote for, right? It was really kind of the early days. I don't believe, and I think that this was back in 2001, I think, if I think back, there were not any bloggers at all that were allowed into the press area at CES back in that time. That was really, really early days. So I had to, and fortunately at the time, I had some articles that I had written for a local Seattle area newspaper, that I was doing, while I was actually doing my broadcast radio show and my webcast. So I was online and offline. So that was the only way I could get a press pass back in those days. And I think, what CES has done is really gone completely to the other end of the spectrum, where it's like they would love to have as many bloggers and podcasters and in the press room and covering the floor. I mean, it's really been phenomenal to see that door open, because it wasn't that long ago that it was really only limited to the major media folks, and that's it.
And I think the press people have resigned themselves. It was 3 years ago that you would see, they'd see your badge and they'd wrinkle their nose at you,
Yeah.
and I think now they're scared of us.
Well, frankly, you guys are doing a much better job of covering the event than the major media is, and I think they're a little bit backing off from it, I think.
But isn't it interesting if you think about someone who is really trying to learn, they're trying to make an informed purchase on a router for their home, for example, and the ability to search for that model number and to get, I mean, not only our coverage but other independent podcasters, other people. It's like, they can come in there and they can find 6 or 8 interviews of that are focused on that product, none of which were controlled messaging from the manufacturer. Part of it was kind of their talking points and scripts. But if
Yeah.
somebody is trying to really research a piece of equipment and find out what's going to be best for their needs, they have tools that were like totally not available to them even 5, 6 years ago.
And I'm finding now I'm getting questioned by other shows. Are you coming to our show? We'd like to have you cover our show. And
Hmm.
it's, I would love to, but it could be, if we could find the right sponsor mix, it could be a full time. We could have crews at multiple shows week after week doing the same type of coverage. we'd obviously have to have a much bigger team and a considerably
Younger
larger
guys,
a considerably larger budget. What were you saying, Andy?
younger guys.
And younger guys, yeah, and maybe a few younger.
I'm not signing up for that.
But it could we could cover this thing, but you have to be careful too. Then do you become part of the establishment? So the key is to not become part of the establishment and still remain independent. And I had gotten email after email after email by press people, not press people, by the handlers, the PR people, asking me when we were having them schedule the interviews, do we have to pay for our interview? And I was like,
You're kidding,
no.
really?
Yeah, asking me. And I mean, I probably got 100 of those. So I actually changed the writing on our live interview page and our floor interview application page saying that basically there's no fee. We don't charge for interviews. But here's the funny thing, Rob. I'm also was listed as an exhibitor. We are in the exhibitor listings, right? So
Oh,
what I was getting is very prominent names covering the show with significantly large booths. No new media folks. Okay. This would be a more traditional guys.
yeah.
Hey, $600 for a 10-minute interview. Schedule now.
Wow.
I've only got 25 spots left. And I'm thinking to myself, huh, what kind of editorial integrity is there from and his audience has no idea that he's charging for these interviews. I
Wow.
I and I don't know why CEA puts up with it. I don't know why they allow that individual back year after year. It's a
Can you say
nationally syndicated radio show.
so? Can you say which radio show you're
I,
talking
I,
about?
I don't want to, but
Okay.
there's only
Yeah,
so
I think
many.
I could guess.
But
Yeah, I think I
I
could
was
guess.
just posting making a decision this morning as far as what to post on TPN. Um, and this was an interview that I did live, and a great product, and a great product. You got the CEO of the company there. He's excited. I'm thinking, this is really great. And he says something like, this works with any machine. There's zero configuration and so forth. And I just say to him, okay, here's a laptop. Do your thing. And he hooks it up, and it doesn't work. I mean, it's for reasons that make a lot of sense. The auto run capability was disabled in the laptop. It's things that our audience would understand. And I was thinking, do I want to put that up, which shows his product in a bad light? Or then does it really? Does he gain more credibility by having a demo that kind of bombs and recovers from it, knows why it happened, and then moves forward? I think he does, rather than something that was highly scripted.
Yeah, potentially. Someone was saying they don't allow selling a product on the show floor. Actually, they do, but it's very few vendors and very specific products get approved. Because I bought two things on the floor this year. One of them is that the light right behind me, or this board right behind me, that needs a little more artistic support, and our
Your menu board.
oh shoot, and our OLED name tags, which I haven't got mine programmed yet. That's another thing on the list. But yeah, so I don't know. I guess we'll see. We'll see what comes of next year, if we get invited back or not, and if I can afford to do it. My FedEx bill was $3,200 to get stuff there and back.
Wow.
30 days of post show work. Um, about probably $3,000 to get all the blog posts up. You start doing the math on this thing, and then you say, okay, what did the sponsors pay? And believe me, we loved our sponsors. But you have to really make sure that okay, is the reward of doing this offset the expense, and time will tell. Um, I'm just gonna do what we're gonna. What I should have bought, Andy, was a storage bin there in Vegas and left some of this stuff in storage. It had probably been cheaper than shipping it.
Yeah, we've talked about that a couple of times, and I think it's becoming more and more. Well, and not only things that you shipped, there were a fair number of items that well, Rick took over to his house,
Yep,
or things that we just threw away because it
cables.
costs more to ship them.
Yep, USB cables, extension cables, just stuff that not even worth brand new, but power strips, stuff that's not even costs more to ship it than it is to buy it. So,
Hmm.
but anyway, the couple of things I saw at the show, and let me bring a couple of these things up. And this one I missed, but I got to see it because watching the videos. Is Jeffrey did an interview with LG, and LG's taken an interesting approach to their smart TV. Let me actually cue this up. They're obviously going to be launching smart TVs, but they're also going to be introducing a hockey puck that will be able to be used with existing LG customers. Thing's going to be $129. So existing owners are going to be able to upgrade their TVs using the LG's new smart TV upgrader. And this is pretty exciting stuff. And the LG uh, IPTV or OTT, whatever we want to call this offering, was pretty compelling. So LG's a big, huge in the television space. Hopefully, they're obviously a Korean company, so they're a little harder to work with than some of the other U.S. based companies. But hopefully, we'll be able to get some apps on this before they release in quarter two. But I thought this was pretty good. Andy, did you get to see the smart TV upgrader at all? Were you with Jeffrey when he
No,
went through his?
I didn't get a chance to see the LG booth. I was as you know, we each had different kind of hall assignments, and that was one area that I didn't get into. But I think it has to be terribly disruptive to people who are the traditional broadcasters and content providers. I saw that the Hulu partnership is having a little bit of tension about how soon to put up episodes and how many and how long to leave them up. Because some of their affiliates over the air broadcasters are getting a little bit restive there.
And the adoption rate's been a little higher than they expected. So yeah, kind of
Mm-hmm.
curious. Now, Rob, you're gonna love this one. I don't. It's a little dark. We had some lighting issues the first night of the show, but I gotta show this because this is just so classic. Andy started this interview and I walked away because I was actually working with another team. Let me bring this up. Let me see if I can actually show this here. I want to show what was going on. Andy's doing an interview with and this is one of Andy's interviews he had a little bit of challenge with. Um, Andy's doing an interview with the Boxy folks. And of course, here comes our Audible advertisement. So we'll let this run for a second. But Andy starts his interview with the Boxy rep here, and just watch what's playing in the background. Oh, this has got the full Luxor. Oh, this has got all three ads. This is a floor interview. This was only supposed to have one. Okay, so who's playing behind Andy? Andy.
Oh yeah, there's Andy.
And I'm just smiling. I'm just laughing, because this is the absolute best product placement you could get. Here he is doing an interview with Boxy, running our Luxor ad, and it's gonna this ad will run for 60 seconds. This guy is oblivious, completely oblivious to what is happening behind him, and Don't tell me that isn't just the coolest. I think this is one of the coolest interviews of the whole show. So,
Well, I really do like that product. I've been really really happy with it, and you know I almost was discounting them maybe 6 8 months ago because they were slow from the gate. They didn't hit their initial delivery points and so forth. But I'm really beginning to appreciate the D-Link implementation of Boxy.
yeah, it's and they were all over the place. Boxy's going to be in and some devices and stuff. We saw ViewSonic is going to have Boxy in, but here it is. If we could have had that running in every interview, that just so. But I just had to show that from a uh, you just never know when you're going to get a good product placement in a good ad or. But again, the Boxy was part of was obviously one of the companies we wanted to talk to at the show.
we we need to let the Luxor people make sure they get to see that as well.
Yeah, and they'll get a good laugh out of it. Now, interview that Andy you did was with the Kylo folks, and can you talk a little bit about Kylo, or did I catch you off guard there? Do you
Oh
remember?
no! In fact, that was one of the things I wanted to bring up. I was really pleased to come through and see this. I thought it was kind of a unique user interface, but but basically, Kylo is a free browser download just at Kylo.com, which is optimized for the flat screen. If you have a laptop or Mac Mini that you're using in a home theater kind of situation, and you're trying to run Firefox on there, you've got this navigation problem because that's designed for for a laptop. And what Kylo does is they have a browser that's optimized for being on the screen. You see these great large size buttons there in their layout, and these icons very comfortable to move back and forth. And you see what that fellow has in his hand? It's like a big donut ring with a thumb wheel, and it has accelerometers in it, so that you can move the donut ring back and forth and just hit those icons very easily. And I've got I've got one of those things on order. I'm very anxious to see what it's going to be like. What the user experience is going to be.
You know what? Go ahead, Rob.
So is it a whole service or just like a mouse pointer kind of a thing?
It's a mouse pointer thing, and then when you click on that, if you click on Comedy Central, it moves you to Comedy Central's website. And then if there is a video that's active at that point, you hit the mouse thumb wheel again, and it blows that video to full screen.
Oh,
Now,
that sounds great.
now,
Hey,
first,
did you guys hear that there's speculation that live streaming cable TV could come to Hulu?
oh, that's interesting. Now, I had
Yeah.
heard that when I went to the set top box conference, the local affiliates are very desperate to get on devices. They want to be on Roku. They want to be on Boxy. They want to be on all these different devices. They want to stream their content into.
Yep.
But the problem they're running into is that rebroadcast permission base. Basically, same thing. They don't have permission to run mainstream. That they can put the news and their local programming, but they can't put national programming up in those streams. So that's one of the challenges that they're from a licensing standpoint that they're running against too. Next thing I want to
Yeah, I
talk.
think
Go ahead.
if there's one thing that we could all push for and really make known out there is this whole idea of a streaming cable subscription is really compelling. I know I've been using one here. It's through a company called IBTV.
I have a subscription
And
too.
yep, and it's really compelling to be able to just pop open an application, tune into a channel, the same kind of content you get on your your cable set top box, and get it anytime, on your PC or on your laptop, over Wi-Fi or whatever from anywhere. So I mean, I think if you think about it, those Roku's, or any of these alternative devices that connect to the television, they really need to offer almost like a cable TV alternative, to really make a complete offering, right? I mean, I think it's right now, if you look at the Roku and you look at the Boxee and all sort of, they're just partial solutions to what most users really want. I mean, yeah, and I'm not saying that all users want cable TV, but I would say if you think about the mass market, I think, for now anyway, until the IPTV solutions get a lot better and there's a lot more content there, and they really figure out the whole business model, that having a like a simulated kind of cable TV experience built into those, is really, I think where the sweet spot is. And as far as I know, the regulation with the FCC, has a few kind of wording loopholes that do allow cable TV competitors to license and launch. So it's really kind of pushing in that direction. I think is really an important thing for this kind of online TV world to push towards, because then you're reaching a product solution that will actually reach the mass audience. Now, granted, it's very threatening to a Comcast, um, but competition is good, because right now we all don't have a lot of competition for that kind of stuff.
Now, Andy's holding up his computer there to the screen. He's got CMT, TLC, PBS. Who else is on there? HGTV.
HGTV, FX, DIY network, just and for example, if I let me go ahead and I'll bring up the DIY, for example, and if I click on that, then it brings up the DIY website.
Yeah.
And again, you can see at the bottom here, there's the very simple, the very simple icons there, and you can hear that's what's on the site.
The challenge though is I think some of that stuff, again, it ties back to their websites, but it's not true streaming per se. Now that's pretty live, looks like.
Think about buying kitchen cabinets you could assemble yourself.
So, on January 1st, I cut the cord here, and we officially got rid of the cable TV subscription. We've been living without cable TV now for a month, and so far, no complaints. I did keep the pay-per-view portion where I could actually get pay-per-view, so that kind of works out so far. But, there's a lot of options, and we really haven't missed cable TV up to this point. So far, it's been pretty good. One thing I want to do is I want to bring up the Tech Podcast or TPN.TV website and show you guys. Well, I tell you, that's a couple of cute girls that were there at CES.
Yeah, that was my interview. I just I just posted that.
So one thing that we saw this year that we haven't seen in years past is we saw Ford was at the Ford was at the event. Oh, I got to fix that post. Anyway, Ford was at the show in a big way. They were over in North Hall, had a huge space, and we did several interviews with them as we took care of the Focus Electric. I actually got to see the Focus Electric the night before they announced it, but it was one of those bandwidth things. Wasn't able to get very much stuff up, but Toyota was there, Audi was there. This is not a car show. This is a CES. So, it was interesting to see all these car vendors there and showing off their technology. So there's a lot of people in the car industry very, very unhappy that these major automobile manufacturers were at the show. What's your guys' What's your guys' thoughts?
Well, I think it's really appropriate for them to be there because I mean CES has always been a kind of consumer electronics auto kind of thing. I mean they've been showing off stereos and tech for cars for years, and as these cars become higher tech, they become electric cars. These cars have start buttons, just like a laptop. So as they get more tech in them, they become consumer electronic devices, in my opinion. And I mean, if I look at the Nissan Leaf that I'm on order to pick up, I actually look at that as kind of like it's a high tech consumer electronics device. It's not a petrol powered car. So